Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, who is always on the hunt for the next game-changing tech in sports, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. I'm Sean Callanan, and welcome to episode 388 of Sports Geek. This week, I chat with Stephanie Rogers. She's the Vice President of Marketing at the Vegas Golden Knights. And that's right, I am on the hunt for the next game-changing technology in sports. Please reach out. You can always reach me via email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com, or on socials at Sean Callanan or at SportsGeek. And don't forget, you can now leave a review for the podcast on my favourite podcast platform, Pocket Casts. So if you're using Pocket Casts because of me, thank you. It's one of the tools that I love using. It's my preferred podcast platform, but now they allow ratings. So I'll happily accept 5 stars from anyone that's listening. Also, I want to know how long you've been listening to Sports Geek. I've been doing this podcast for over 10 years. I'd love to hear from you. I know I meet up with people and see them at conferences and the like. But if you've never reached out, please do so. Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. No pitch, no ask. I'd just love to hear from listeners from all different parts of the world. So if you've been listening for a while, send us an email. Don't forget, you can head to sportsgeekhq.com for this episode and every episode of Sports Geek, and also the Sports Geek Throwback Series, which is a great way to dive into the back catalogue of all things Sports Geek. Please enjoy my chat with Stephanie Rogers from the Vegas Golden Knights. Very happy to welcome Stephanie Rogers. She's the VP of Marketing for the Vegas Golden Knights. Stephanie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem at all. I always start my podcast by trying to find out the sports business origin story for people and how they got their start in the world of sports. What about yourself? How did you break into the world of sports?
Yeah, my career goes all the way back to when I first started university. I started in their athletic department in their sports information office, writing press releases and doing game notes and media guides and all of those kind of core sports media things that the communications folks usually handle. So that was really my first entree. I covered a lot of different sports that I hadn't really followed before, like tennis and soccer and field hockey. But I also got to cover a lot of the classics, or at least American classics, and football and wrestling, which is really big in Iowa, and women's basketball. So my days of working in sports go way back.
And so, coming out of University of Iowa and being in that space, what was your first, I guess, job out of university?
Yeah, I did a few internships with women's basketball and junior golf, and then the junior golf internship spearheaded my first professional, or I should say, full-time role in the golf world for a junior golf organization, and then ultimately continued on that pathway and landed at the PGA Tour, where I was for about 8 years, and got the pleasure of spending some time down under with all of you guys and with you. And I was in primarily communications roles until really I got to the PGA Tour, and then started focusing a lot on content production, social, digital, email, kind of all of the other things that like an in-house marketing agency would cover. And our team grew very quickly as it related to that, because that was really a time when content and social channels were starting to be used as a business tool, and nobody really kind of knew the roadmap. And of course, everybody had plenty of things to do. So they sort of handed it off to us and to me and said, figure this out. And we had a really wonderful team that was motivated and excited to figure it out with us. So we grew very quickly on the tournament marketing front. And then I ended up in Vegas about 2 years ago.
Yeah, and it was an exciting time on that PGA Tour. We crossed paths when the President's Cup was down here in Melbourne. Some of the greatest golf courses in the world down here in Melbourne. But you're working at PGA Tour at the same time that all the the big four, the NBA and NFL, were all building out their own digital capacity, really taking advantage of social and building out your own platforms. And was that sort of the time you were at PGA Tour where you're leveraging social and driving into social? I remember catching up with Lauren Teague when she was in Melbourne one time, who you would have worked with, but building out that team. And like you said, it was like, oh, we're now adding this to your portfolio. You're both doing content, and then you're doing amplification, then you're rolling out ads and, ticketing. Was it something that was sort of every year, something that keep getting added to your portfolio, but also the team kept growing?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And I was over all of the tournaments that the PGA Tour owns and operates, and that's a collection of tournaments called Championship Management. And that's exactly it. I mean, you're going to age me, but I started working in social when it was, 140 characters and no photos on then called Twitter. But really, when I, had gotten to the PGA Tour was when they started rolling out the analytics. And they didn't have advertising quite yet, but they had a lot of analytics. So we were really digging into that. And yeah, I mean, the pace of how quickly those platforms evolved and changed and became absolute powerhouses as it relates to an overall strategy and a core business function was so quick. I mean, it was like every month something was changing because they were just pumping, the platforms themselves were pumping a bunch of resource into, evolving their businesses and practices and getting smarter. And so with that, we continued to keep pace. And thankfully, our content was really performing very strongly. And we were able to showcase not only the value to our partners, and we were able to start selling social content in a really thoughtful way. We then parlayed that into our ticketing and our sponsorship strategy. So a lot of people sell tickets across all of the various digital platforms. We were also helping to seed a lot of that high level sponsorship discussion. And just, originally I was listening to something the other day, and, the United Airlines CMO said it used to just be like fan feedback or customer, feedback, right? My flight is delayed. And for us, it was like, I can't find my parking. And now it's just so much more. I mean, it is the most approachable and conversational piece of a brand oftentimes, but it's also a powerhouse of a sales brand. And so we were really at the forefront of when that started happening, and we're able to keep pace with it and take advantage of it as it grew.
I mean, the thing that I find interesting, especially in the golf market, and when the President's Cup came to town, it's not like a traditional sport, stick and ball or park, as we will talk about hockey, where you've got your own venue and you've got a cadence of this is when the team is playing. Every single tournament was in a different location, in a different market, and would have presented different challenges from, hey, how do we sell out these different tournaments? How was that sort of trying to figure out that piece of that puzzle, and then applying these new platforms and new channels to be able to sell tickets?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So my very first President's Cup was actually in South Korea in Incheon City, which is out there at the Jack Nicklaus Golf Club. And the approach there at that point in time was really education on not only the sport, but what the event is and what the PGA Tour is. When we came to Melbourne, thankfully they're golf rabid down there. And to your point, they have some of the most incredible golf in the entire world with that Sandbelt region. I mean, it's truly special to get to see it, and they understand the sport. And so for us at that point, it was really around the just the bigness of the event, right? It's a massive global event. We were very, very lucky. We had Ernie Els and Tiger Woods as our captains. I mean, come on, you can't pick a better storyline than that. And so as it related to, we only had 6 days or 7 days that we were selling for, we had to engage everybody for 2 years and get them excited, right? We were in a sales cycle of 2 years, and it's a really hard thing to sell tickets that far in advance for a venue that, most people think is no capacity. We did have a capacity, and we sold out actually on a couple of our days when we were in Melbourne, thanks to all those incredible Aussie fans that were down there, and many others that traveled from South Africa and even Canada and the United States as well. But for us, it's figuring out the cadence, right? Of like when you're going to really need to hit that punch of people got to be in the door or through the gates, and putting your entire strategy up to leading to that. And then, likewise, it's just because you had really good success in Australia once doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have that great success the next time. You got to stay engaged with the consumer and with the fan base and with the city, really.
I mean, your role at the PGA and sort of is a lot to, a lot of the listeners will remember. I remember Twitter when it was 140 and all the pictures were on TwitPic, those days. But you've also then, migrated a lot like what we do in that digital to dollars space to go, oh, here's what we're doing from a digital point of view, but here's how we can commercialize it. And I want to just touch on your last role at the PGA, which was corporate partnership corporate partnership strategy and innovation. What was the scope of that role? Because again, it's sort of looking at what are the different ways you can bring in your partners. And the bit that I was interested in is that innovation piece. So was that something that sort of started to open up some of the opportunities that you could do with your partners?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was very lucky to have a lot of different experiences with the events that we had. They were literally all over the world and in many different types of markets. It wasn't just like major markets like New York City and Melbourne and Mexico City. They were in mid markets and, southern markets and, things like that. So when I ended up moving over to the corporate partnerships team and the business development team, it was really because they had been selling the PGA Tour at the entity level in a very similar way for many, many years. And certainly, the sales team was really wonderful. So this is no knock at all on the work that they were doing. They were incredible. But they started realizing people are asking more questions about these more innovative topics, right? What's sustainability look like for the PGA Tour? What's DE&I look like for the PGA Tour? What are you doing in the community from a charitable perspective? What are you doing to impact the growth of the game at the youth level or at the female level or things like that? And so because I was so deeply involved in many, many of those initiatives at the tournament level, they actually had me come over to the business development team and help revision and revamp the entire storytelling behind how we should be selling the PGA Tour. That was supplemental and complementary to, we have great ratings and we have a lot of people that come out and watch this and a lot of people spend money here. It's a great business, opportunity. So I was really just kind of coming in to fill in the gaps a little bit and make our story a little bit more whole, especially in terms of how our brand was actually coming to life, right? It was so much more than just, the guys between the ropes and the corporate hospitality. And there was so much more happening in the community and around the events that we really needed to tell. So that's kind of where that innovation piece came in. And then separately, there was, sometimes where it was like, okay, we have this partner that's here. They have all of these different goals. Like, what do we think that we could create that the tournaments really need? Because that's the other piece of it, right? You sell at the PGA Tour level, but ultimately the tournaments have to execute it. And so you want to make sure you're not handing them something that's going to be difficult to execute, because that doesn't help anybody at the end of the day. And so I was really involved in the processes of figuring out what are some of these new ideas that we can bring to partners that would elevate both their message and the tournament experience for the fan and for whomever else it was intended to elevate it for.
It's really important that you do get that voice of the people who have to execute. Again, I constantly use the joke of being the digital divorce counselor. Something goes and gets sold and you have to go and bring in the digital team or the operations team to actually execute it. But if you have that lens of, here's the landscape that we've got, or, here's the footprint that we've got at a tournament that we can do something with, or, here's what we can do on this digital platform, it does open up the eyes of commercial, because they're, like you said, they're killing it in selling what they've got. They don't know what they can't sell if they're not brought in. And, things like, sustainability as a commercial asset has something that has grown in the last, 10 years. So it is something where you've got to try to work on working with your commercial team so they know the things that they can sell. I wanted to, and then obviously now you're at the Vegas Golden Knights. What attracted you to the role? You joined in July 2022.
Yeah, so when I was in the business development role, I learned an immense amount about corporate sales, and it was really, really a cool position to be in. But in my heart and soul, I just really missed that engagement with the fans. I just really determined that I was a marketer at heart, and I wanted to impact fans on the daily basis. I wanted to have the storytelling and see their faces and have the conversations right with them out, on the plaza or whatever. And so I had seen the Vegas Golden Knights brand represented all over social media. And actually, my sister went to school out here. And so a bunch of her friends were always posting about it. And I just thought, wow, what an incredible brand that really prioritizes and puts the resource into engaging with the fan. And so I blindly applied. I didn't really know anybody out here. And, destiny is destiny. And I ended up getting the offer a couple months later and moving across the country from the swamp to the desert, as I like to say. And it's been everything. This is a brand that's really sure of itself, but also like not so proud that it's not willing to get better. We love having fun here. We love innovating. We always, sit down to brainstorm and we're like, no self-editing until it's done. And so it's just a very, very creative space, and it cultivates just really wonderful ideas that have high impact, both from the brand perspective. You can't miss us. Sean, you were just out here a few months ago. You drive around, you see our license plates all over the place. You see the logo all over the place. So not only is it a really powerful visual brand, it's a really powerful emotive brand in terms of how people associate their feelings with us, both from our game day experience, which is totally unique in sport. I'll put it up against anything in the world. It's really incredible. We do a great job with it. But also what we mean in the community and how people feel about that representation and that service to the community from the Golden Knights brand.
I mean, you did present with Eric Tosi at SEAT, the Golden Standard, and talked about the fan experience that it got for Golden Knights fans, and that was sort of you coming back to your core. Tell us a little bit about that fan experience and a little bit more about the Golden Knights fans and what makes them special.
Yeah, so the fan experience, I always like to share this because I just think it helps contextualize for everybody that knows about Vegas, right? It's this wild, insane, crazy, over the top, stimulation overload type place. And everybody knows that. The entire world knows that. And our owner said, we want to have the best entertainment product on the Vegas Strip. And when you think about that, it's like, holy smokes, that bar is set really high. And, so every single day we're trying to figure out how do we execute at that level. And so for us, the experience is really intended to be so much of Vegas that you can't miss it, but also the pinnacle of sport as well. So it's not only the pinnacle of entertainment, it's the pinnacle of sport. And we're really proud of the fact that we've helped solidify. And honestly, we were helping to pioneer Vegas as one of the sports capitals, if not the sports capital of the world. And it's certainly the sports and entertainment capital of the world. So that's kind of how we approach the experience and on game day. There's a lot of different things that we do, as we talked about at SEAT, that utilize the playground that is this city of media. So there's massive video boards all over town, and massive hotel properties, and just different kind of high impact installation type executions that we can use. Thankfully, a lot of these our businesses are our partners. And thankfully, a lot of the executives at these businesses are just fans, not even our partners, but they're fans. And so they're always open to thinking about cool ideas. We just did something with our team dog, Maverick, our canine. He's our president of our canine club, and he did, a very important pup VIP day through Vegas. And so he got like spa treatment, and he got to go in the boat at the Venetian and all sorts of stuff. So we really feed off of the creativity and innovation of this city as the Vegas Golden Knights, but we also try to feed into it as well, right? It's this kind of collective effort there. And I guess the second question is about the fan base. And it's something that we're so proud of. We really are the locals team. And that was a goal for us from the beginning. There are, 40 to 50 million tourists through the city every single year. That's wonderful. We love them. Thanks for coming to town. We want you to come to a Vegas Golden Knights game and check us out and fall in love with our team. But for us, the most important piece of our brand was being the locals team and representing the community of Vegas. And, Eric always does a really nice job explaining just the vibrancy of Vegas, and everybody knows the wild, world-renowned Vegas Strip. But outside of that, the community is really incredible. It's one of the most diverse communities, out here. It's got incredible food. It's got incredible parks and different, outdoor activities. And so there's just a lot more here that makes this a really rich culture in Vegas outside of what everybody knows us for. And so for us, we wanted to be representative and one in the same with those people that make Vegas such an incredible community.
Because it would be, I guess, a misconception for those outside of Vegas that, like come in, either go to a conference like I did or come in for a couple of days for some recreation, to think that's everybody in Vegas. But it's really, really important for you, and you've come in and now consider yourself a local and being in market. So important for you to be connecting with those local fans. They're your base. They're the ones that are coming to all the games. They're the ones that end up getting large back tattoos of your logo and those kind of things that really is a measure of fandom. It's really important for you to connect with that local fan base.
Yeah, absolutely. The tattoos really are a real thing. I mean, during the playoffs, we have a history of setting up. We actually partner with Revolt Tattoos, which is the one guy is on the TV show Ink Masters and has won it a few times, I think. But they come out and they literally for free will tattoo our logo onto you prior to you going into the game. And Sean, I kid you not, every single game, there are hundreds of people lined up for hours before we even start. It's really amazing. We laugh about it. I think the fans laugh about it, but it's just so powerful, right? And it just speaks to the way that the people feel about our brand. And yeah, on any given night, if you're in T-Mobile Arena at the Fortress with us when we're playing, 80% of the people that are in that building are locals. And that's the way we want to keep it. We want it to be the team that has the best home ice advantage. We've been voted the best home ice advantage by the players in the actual National Hockey League for several times, including just last year. They think it's the hardest place to play, and that's because we have such passionate local fans that have learned the sport in a very rapid amount of time. I would say most of them didn't follow the sport of hockey at all, let alone at a level of knowing the ins and outs of the rules and the pace of the game just 7 years ago when we got here, right? And so it's been really fun to see the evolution. And again, I've only been here for 2 years, and even in that 2 years, it's been just a really humbling experience to get to be a part of it. I'm very fortunate.
And you talked about Vegas being a sports and entertainment capital. You walk down the strip and your senses are bombarded, in all directions. But Vegas is also a beast when it comes to data and marketing. The casinos are leading the way in getting data, understanding loyalty, what CRM is, putting out offers. It sets the bar really high. What have you learned in your time, coming to Vegas and being in that environment and seeing, the way that the rest of the city and, the strip, I guess, activate?
Yeah, it's a really funny media environment. I haven't been here. I haven't been in a space quite like this before. Honestly, Melbourne is probably the closest media market that I've ever navigated from an advertising standpoint, because out of home is still so important here. And previously, when I was, kind of all over the world, you really didn't do a lot of out of home. But in Melbourne, we did these massive murals and we did some bus stop takeovers. We had a great agency in Melbourne. We absolutely loved working with them. They were wonderful. But we did really innovative things like chatbots. And that was back in 2017, 2018, when chatbots were kind of niche still, to be honest with you. They're sort of picking up again. But at that point in time, they were like, nope, we got to do chatbots. So you're doing, an artistic mural and a chatbot. And I think that's the exact same way that we're handling it here. There's so much information about how people consume in Vegas and consume everything, how they plan their travel, how they plan what they do when they get here, the types of people that are coming in at all different types of the year. There are hundreds of conventions, probably thousands of conventions that are in this town every single year. And so there's a lot of information around that, right? And so it's this big puzzle that we're constantly trying to fit together. But that visual presence of the out of home, whether it's the license plates that, the cars are driving around, or the static billboards, or, any of these other visuals, it's still so important because it is such a visually, overcoming space out here in Vegas with so many things in your face at all times. I'll tell you a funny story. When I was first coming out here and Eric was asking me how I felt about billboards. And this is one of those moments where you learn not to say too much, think before you talk. Because I was like, who does billboards? Such a waste of money. You can't track it. You can't retarget these people. I'm digital first, right? And then I'm driving around and I'm like, okay, I get it. I get that everybody has billboards now. And this year we were talking about the paid media plan, and he's like, do you think we really needed a billboard? And I'm like, yeah, we need the billboard. Are you serious? It's awesome. And so, it just goes to show that the market is such a unique place out here in Vegas that you really do need to have that constant reminder, because everybody's being inundated at all times, but you have to have that innovative tech to really get people through the funnel as efficiently as you want them to get through the funnel.
So Vegas is an old school entertainment town, but still relatively new as a sports city. The Golden Knights broke some ground and busted some myths, as an expansion team to sort of take over the market. And now, the Raiders have moved to town. You have the F1 circus come to town. What's it like being in this, effectively growth sports city in Vegas?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super exciting, right? Like the more that Vegas is known as a sports town, the better for all of us that are in the sports industry. It's been a very rapid escalation of all the brands that are here. The two-time WNBA world champions, the Las Vegas Aces, are also here. Rugby is here. The Aussie Rugby League is out here, and I think they're coming again. And that's a massive thing. We have an indoor football team, so literally everything is here or coming. And for us, it's really exciting. We hope again to continue to maintain our connection with the community through that local sports fan. But yeah, the more and more that everybody knows of Vegas as the sports capital of the world, the better for the Vegas Golden Knights is our take. We would love to introduce, all however many billion of people in the world to the Vegas Golden Knights brand. So come on through town and check us out. But it's been really interesting. And I think, the Golden Knights really, Bill Foley had the vision, right? And I think the commissioner on the night that we won the cup called it the audacity. I don't think that I would call it that, but those are the commissioner's words. But to really believe in this being a sports town. I mean, when Mr. Foley was trying to get the expansion team, he was set. He knew that this town could be a thriving sports town, and he knew that hockey could work here against all odds. There were so many doubters. Everybody was a doubter, except for the people that were in his corner. And to his credit, he's really changed the landscape out here. And we're thankful to have been obviously the first chip to fall, if you will, on that one. But yeah, I mean, it's really all due to his vision and his tenacity and his persistency of making it acceptable, making it approved, because there was a lot of doubt, right? I mean, this is a gambling town, and there was a lot of doubt about the integrity of being able to have professional sports in this town. And look, it's totally fair, and I think I'm just thankful that we were the ones that led the way in terms of debunking that and showing that it can be everything that Vegas is. And is known for, but it also can be a world-class sports town as well.
Yeah, you talk about your owner and his vision for the Golden Knights. How do you I guess live that and also push that through both with the brand and everything you're trying to do with the team?
Yeah, I love that question because it really leads into our brand triangle, which I know we shared at the SEEK conference. But for us, the entirety of our brand comes down to three things. And Bill Foley is at the top of it, right? So he was a service member with the U.S. military. He went to West Point. He's been in finance for a long time. He's a philanthropist. He gives a lot of money to different, causes around the country. But he's also an entrepreneur. And so he's just got this entire mentality of always advance, never retreat. It's actually in the collar of our hockey jerseys, but it's also in the collar of our English Premier League kits. And it's represented all over our business. So this mentality of always advance, never retreat. And then the second piece of that brand triangle is the Knight, right? The Golden Knight is what our brand is named after. And the Knight is the epitome of the warrior class. It is literally exists to serve the community and to protect the people that can't protect themselves, and to be prideful doing it, right? And to be, no ego approach is another one that we always kind of talk about. And it's just meant to showcase like whatever it takes, you will go to battle. You will go to battle for the people next to you, go to battle for the people that can't battle for themselves, and you'll go to battle for the right thing. And that's, another piece of our brand triangle. And that really, that right thing piece is important as well, because, Bill is very adamant that the people that are connected to his organization are good people. And that goes all the way down into the people that are on the ice as well. In professional sports, it's a really unique place to be when your ownership is equally as focused on the quality of human in their team as they are on, the wins. Thankfully, we've gotten to experience both of those, but I think that they feed each other. Truthfully, I don't think that you can have the success of a team with having, a tough locker room. And so, yeah, that's another piece that comes to life through our Knight version of our Knight corner of our brand triangle. And then the last piece of the triangle is Vegas, right? It's this glitz, it's this glamour, it's the vibrant community that exists outside of the Strip, it's the locals, it's the passion. And so bringing all of those together, they feel like there's no way that they could possibly fit. But they do, they blend wonderfully, and they fit together in our Vegas Golden Knights brand. And we were the first team here. And so part of that original brand was Vegas born. That was our first campaign ever, is that we were an expansion team. We didn't move here from another city. We are literally a team that was born here in Vegas. And that Vegas born mentality really supported that idea that the locals are maybe not looked at the way that they think or the way that they should be looked at. Everybody, when you say that you live in Vegas, there's this stigma like, oh, do you just like sit on the blackjack table all day long? Well, like, no, there's, medical and there's teachers and there's all sorts of other, and there's universities and there's all sorts of other life here. And so that idea of being very proudly Vegas born really ended up transcending into the community beautifully, like absolutely beautifully from a brand campaign and from that community. I like to say that we expedited generational fandom with that and with that first season of Special Performance on the Ice. So that's how we kind of bring it all together in this like magic, 8-ball that we mix up and then turn into the fortress and build the realm with.
But also, you sort of talked before, it also pervades the culture of the team internally, in that, when you said before, hey, we're throwing out ideas, marketing, there's no self-editing, we're taking on board everyone's feedback. Does that collaborative nature that sort of leans into that night, serving piece really help your team be a high-performing team?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It all goes back to that, no ego, right? And always advance and serve. It's all of it is really how it comes to life. And it sounds like cliche marketing speak, but like genuinely, we use these terms and we talk about these terms out loud every single day. They're a part of our daily vernacular, but they're also, they carry a weight and people understand what they mean in action, right? It's one thing to be like, always advance, never retreat in theory, but like, what does that mean in your day-to-day business life? And so for us, it means innovation. It means never being too proud to get better, beating an idea. You might have a great idea, bring it to the group, let's beat it up and let's make it better. Iron sharpens iron kind of mentality, right? And so there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of this kind of terminology that we use. But in the business office, everybody understands how to action against that or how to action with that in mind, which makes the business office a really good place to be. And it makes us, it holds us accountable to driving the business forward.
I said before that, Vegas as a city is a beast when it comes to, that MarTech stack and understanding the customers and those kind of things. What are some of the key tools in your toolkit that you're using, on a daily basis to better serve the Golden Knights fans?
Yeah, we actually, great timing because we just hung up looking through our kind of media plan for this year, and we have a lot of new tools in that toolkit this year that we're excited to use. So just the entire concept of contextual advertising and the ways that you can now integrate your advertising into various television shows or various websites with, just totally high impact, not only videos, but like coming out of the screen, right? So like one of our characters is a Golden Knight. And so he can come out of the screen and like bang the shield and you can start hearing the Go Knights go. So it's like totally immersive advertising. And people are used to it now. When I first got into advertising, people were so anti like getting an ad served to them that it was just like so hard to break through. And now not only is the technology of advertising substantially better where you're actually delivering it to people that want and need to see it, the creative ability of advertising is night and day. It allows it to be an experience that actually is brand forward versus just a static graphic or something that's not as engaging. And then, when you're thinking about when you're watching television and a commercial comes on, we have so many devices that there's all these studies out there about, second screen and third screen and all these other things. I know in our house, when sports are on, we have at least 2 TVs, if not 3, and a couple phones. So, amongst my husband and I, each having a couple. So it's hard to keep that attention. And now you can actually, somebody's drinking, a beer on TV, you can actually like funnel in your beer ad like within the TV. And so for us, if somebody's watching sports, we can actually have, Mark Stone or William Karlsson skate across their screen with a little tickets bug that, will encourage them to buy tickets. And so I think the innovation as it relates to how you're able to deliver these is so much better, not only for the brand, of course, that's my selfish perspective, but also as the consumer, it's fun. It's fun to actually get these kind of cool advertising now. So that's what we're really looking at as it relates to the tech stack. I mean, there's a million examples of, are a million options out there for almost every single thing that you want to do, from apps to, SMS partners to chat bots to, email, right? Like you name it, it's out there. Frankly, they're all, respectfully to everybody that's doing the hard work, standing those up, like they all have their pros and cons, and none of them that I have found to this point are perfect. And so for us, it's figuring out the usability of them, and making sure that the ones that we have all integrate into one CDP, where we can then segment, we can segment who's got this, texting, who signed up for our LMK VGK texting platform, who has our app, who's also following us on email, and who's bought tickets in the last 30 days. That's really what's important for us, is in terms of a tech stack, is making sure it all funnels into one CDP where we're able to very easily segment and serve that very cool advertising that we're creating.
Yeah, but it is really important when you do look at that tool set, and it is something that is growing, year on year. There's always new things. Is that execution piece, like who is actually going to run it? It's a tool. Like, how's it going to be run? Is it going to make my life easier or harder? And then that integration piece is vital, because each extra integration step, or manual or otherwise, complicates things. So it is always a really big part of the equation when you say, oh, I really want to look at that tool. What's the cost of integrating it? And then what's the cost of someone managing it, implementing it, rolling it out, using it on a daily basis? It's always one of the lenses you have to put on from a what tools you have to pick.
Yeah, and I would add to that, Sean, too, and you're kind of going there, and I think it's really important to talk about all of these tools are nothing without a very smart, motivated person to manage them. We are really lucky. We have an amazing business insights leader, and he's working very closely with our digital marketing manager every single day on all of the platforms we have, because these things are costly, and the cost is only worth it if you can return, X number of dollars back, right? Like, we're not doing anything from a tech stack standpoint that we're not able to point to and say, this piece of software or this integration is returning at least 3, 4, 5X. Like, we have very high return on investment and return on ad spend goals and benchmarks, to be honest with you. And so we have to have the smart people that are able to utilize these tools. These tools make it easier for them to do that and push us forward on that return, and making sure that our fans are getting pertinent information that's actually, meaningful to them. But those tools are also nothing if you don't have somebody that's willing to dig into the data and see something that's nuanced and be like, oh, and they have this inherent curiosity to say, I'm going to look into that, or I'm going to A/B test that, or I'm going to try and replicate that because it seems like it's a one-off. And so, yeah, we're really lucky in having David and Kiana on our team, who are very curious. They're very internally motivated, and they work very well together from an insights and a marketing perspective to drive those tools and really put us our best foot forward in that front.
I mean, that advice of being curious, but also, getting deep into the weeds of either the tech of a tool or a tech of a platform to go and finding those solutions. It's great advice for anyone that is trying to go, oh, how can I work in the world of sports? It's like, well, if you know those platforms really well, and you can, unpack some of the complexity and be a problem solver, it's a great skill to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Solution-oriented, great attitude, and curiosity is going to get you a long way. So that's for sure.
One thing I wanted to ask you, I'm going to go to the other side of the world because of an exciting project, an exciting team that's is the Auckland Black Knights, new to the A-League here down under in New Zealand, and part of the Foley Entertainment Group. What's it like helping start a franchise on the other side of the world?
Yeah, it's so exciting. The Down Under crowd is close to my heart. Some of my favorite memories ever were spent in Melbourne and the broader Australia area. So for me, it's really exciting to just be a part of a global expansion. I've always wanted to work in international sport. And so getting to literally do international sport from my seat in Vegas with a powerhouse brand like the Golden Knights is really cool for me on my personal perspective. But as it relates to the Foley Entertainment Group, it's that's a really exciting thing for us too. The Foley Wine and Spirits group actually has a lot of wineries down in the New Zealand area. We have a few restaurants down in Auckland. We have Whare Koho, which is a resort property that's in New Zealand as well. So that's all within the Foley Entertainment Group. So this is really just a perfect addition to that presence in that area with the sports team addition. And it's the fourth team of our international football portfolio. So we have an English Premier League team, AFC Bournemouth, and then we have a team in France and a team in Scotland that we're involved with. And now this expansion team with the A-Leagues is really exciting. And the people of Auckland have been incredible so far. There's been a lot of engagement. The social team is working hard down there. So hopefully all of your listeners will follow along with them. And we've got tickets on sale. We've got memberships going. The brand is really powerful. And yeah, we're looking forward to kicking off the season here in a couple months and really getting going. They've got a couple preseason games, I think, that are coming up here, and just a lot of different community events. So the expansion side of it is really interesting. Not only do you got to get the team stood up, right, on like the competitive side of things, but you really got to find a way to ingratiate yourself within the community as well, and find that fan base and drive that passion. And so the business office is trying to figure out how to put the business together while engaging the fans, while driving corporate sales. But the competition side, they're actually signing players almost every day. If you follow along, there's a new player coming through. So it's a lot of work. It's high volume, as we like to say, but it's really, really gratifying and fulfilling when you get done with it and get to see that first game kicking off. So I'm really proud of the team that's down there. We have a few people from our headquarters up here that have moved and made the transition down to support that team, and they're doing a great job. And everything that we've heard is that the fans are excited, and I'm just waiting on my call up to get that invite to Auckland. I've never been to New Zealand, so I'm hoping to get down there at some point.
I mean, we've worked with teams in different markets, and know the differences, some of the difference between the Australian, New Zealand, and the US markets. But there are some things, I guess, strategically that apply, overall, like you said, that local connection. How do we connect with those local fans? Auckland and Vegas are very different markets when you're looking at them that way. But is there some of those, I guess, strategic tenets that you are still applying that, again, looking back at the Vegas Golden Knights expansion, very successful, and some of the things you did there from a local community, are some of those strategies being applied for the Black Knights?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe not as tactically as here's the actual playbook, right? But certainly at a high level, like the Foley Entertainment Group kind of core values and fundamentals are all the same. It's community, getting involved in the community in a very genuine way, right? Like not just saying that you're a part of the community, but like being out there and helping to support whoever needs to be supported. Again, it comes back to that Knights mentality, and they're the Black Knights, right? And so they have the same, frankly, if you wanted to look at the brand triangle, you could still use the exact same brand triangle, and you could swap out Auckland for Vegas, and you'd still be trying to accomplish the same things. But youth sports development, the women's team development, all of those things are really important to the Foley Entertainment Group sports arm and sports vertical. Representing and being one with the community, being out in the community is another core value of the entire Foley Entertainment Group, regardless of vertical. We might be in sports, we might be in wine, we might be in hospitality, but all of those, we might be in, restaurants and foundations. All of those require whatever and whomever to be genuinely connected to the community. So yeah, there's not exactly it's certainly not copy and paste. To your point, that would feel very disingenuous, and the fan bases are very different. The communities are very different, but there are some of those underlying core values that transcend the entire Foley Entertainment Group and certainly live within the Foley Entertainment Group sports vertical that we're trying to bring to life in Auckland, because we know that they matter, right? And they resonate.
Well, look forward to seeing the Black Knights in action on the pitch when they make their debut. Stephanie, I really appreciate you taking the time. I want to get to the Sports Geek Closing 5. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
Yeah, so my dad actually played 3-on-3 basketball in a league that, was just with his buddies. It certainly wasn't like a professional it was organized, right? But that's literally the first sports event that I remember going to. I think that's probably where my love for the game of basketball came from. And, we'd be out there with our snacks cheering dad on, and from my very, very young days. And so it's fun to reminisce on that.
Terrific. You would have been to a lot of food events, and the food scene has changed over the years. But do you have a favourite food memory or a go-to food at a sports event?
Yeah, I'm a sucker for popcorn, like salty, buttery popcorn at the sport. If you're in an arena, I love that. If you're out walking around at the golf course or something like that, I also really love a good hot dog or a brat. That's like a classic American sports food at the baseball games and whatnot. I did fancy quite a few meat pies when I was down in Australia, but I'm a big sucker for those kind of classic arena or stadium foods.
It does seem to be the divide. If I'm talking to an Australian guest, they go, meat pie with sauce. And then I'm talking to an American guest, it is a hot dog. It sort of just shows the cultural differences from a sports food point of view. What's the first app you open in the morning?
Yeah, so living on the West Coast, I'm an early morning person, but living on the West Coast, I feel like I'm totally behind during the day. Like when I wake up in the morning, everybody's already been awake for hours. So usually the first thing I open is my text to try and catch up on all the group chats. But after that, it's certainly Instagram. That's my go-to, kind of see what's going on, not only from a news standpoint, but just from a visual, get my creative brain started in the morning when my coffee's setting in.
Terrific. What is there someone that you follow? It might be someone on social or an author that the podcast listeners should give a follow, and why?
Yeah, I'm a big sports business nerd, and I'm a big marketing nerd, and I say those, very lovingly. So Jim Stengel, he actually has a podcast as well. It's called the CMO Podcast, and he has a wonderful lineup of people that come on and talk about all different types of things. I follow him pretty closely and have learned a great amount about being a marketer at the world-class level, just outside of the sports industry in general, and people that are kind of involved in various ways. So he's one from a marketing perspective that I would offer anybody to, or encourage anybody to check out. And from a sports perspective, it's obviously you.
Thank you very much. We'll check that out. And the word nerd and geek, it's a safe space here, obviously.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Lastly, what social media platform is your MVP? And so you can answer this personally, and then potentially put your Golden Knights hat on as well.
Yeah. So again, personally, going to age myself here, but Instagram is my go-to. I can't get locked into TikTok. It's just too much. I gotta kind of hone in. I took a break from X for a while because it was too. So Instagram is my spot. But I'm from a business perspective. I really do think Instagram and YouTube are powerhouses from an engagement and an advertising place. Just the amount of video that you can put out there, the way that people can interact. I think they're really great, apps to utilize. And then have been diving into WhatsApp a lot more. That's something that's, very international in nature, but in the States, not a lot of people use it. But as we've started to expand the brand out into the various international markets, we've really started to put together a strategy as it relates to WhatsApp. So excited to see where that one comes to, because my last foray into WhatsApp was when I was in Korea with the President's Cup. So it's been a minute, but looking forward to that.
It is funny. WhatsApp is the messaging platform of Europe. I just came from Italy, and it is pretty much everyone outside of the US is using WhatsApp, and it's still trying to figure out where it is as a platform and how it's being used. But it is interesting to see where it might land. Stephanie, I really do appreciate you coming to the podcast. It was great to catch up with you in Vegas for SEAT, and I hope to make my way back potentially for a Golden Knights game sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. It was so wonderful to chat with you. We're gonna need to get you a Sports Geek Golden Knights and Black Knights jersey for your wall there. So be on the lookout for those ones. But look forward to having you in Vegas again soon and seeing you at the game. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Looking to help your digital or sponsorship team? Book in for a Pick My Brain session with Sean Callanan to help your team level up. Book now at sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain.
Thanks again to Stephanie Rogers. You can connect with her on LinkedIn and follow her on X, SJD Rogers on X. We'll have links for everything we discussed and a few examples in the show notes. You can go to sportsgeekhq.com sportsgeekhq.com/388 to connect with Stephanie and find out more about the Vegas Golden Knights. Before I wrap up, I tried. I really did. I thought I could leave this alone. I can't. One word. Ray Gunn. Yes, by now you have seen the performance of Rachel Ray Gunn in the Paris Olympics. Aussies have a sense of humour. We like laughing at ourselves. But even that was a little bit, cringe, embarrassing and the like. But what I wanted to look at is just, I guess, the way that the internet and the media has covered it. So initially it was obviously all of the banter and comments online, and then the media all sort of piling in and saying how bad it was. And then there was that overcorrection by the media, saying she was having a go and giving it. And again, it was all just feeding the internet machine. It was driving clicks, whether it was pro Ray Gunn or whether it was against Ray Gunn. It was really interesting case study on how the internet reacts and how the media continues to feed on itself in the culture of aggregators and the like, and then also the meme culture in that popping up in different spots, whether it be on TV, but then also in just the meme culture of the internet. For mine, it's going to be interesting. Is it going to be a full 30 for 30 documentary on how it happened and how she got onto the team? And because there's just so much misinformation. I'm recording this, and the AOC just sent out a quite extraordinary media release refuting a lot of the claims online, which is quite understandable because most of the things that are online are incorrect. But it is going to be interesting. Will Ray Gunn be remembered in 3 months' time or 12 months' time, or will she just be an internet trend and a meme for a short amount of time? Do you remember Coney 2012? Do you remember the 4 weeks where everyone was doing the Harlem Shake? Is that if those cycles of, memorable moments going to be short and potentially forgettable? For mine, I think there's potential that this will, as regular sports returns, whether it be, more sports programming and more news, it potentially will be a distant memory. But I just thought it was an interesting case study in, internet memes and internet culture. And then also, as a brand, how much do you get involved in that conversation, especially, when the bullying nature and the negative sides of, hey, we're just having fun, but then it also is, a concern on the pile-on nature of the internet. So that was it. I wasn't going to say anything because I actually thought it was going to fade away by now, but I should have known better in the fact that aggregators are going to keep finding more length to this story and keep diving in on the story. So I expect it to go have a little bit more runway. But I think it will, dissipate, and you won't see much more of it, in 3 or 4 months' time. So if you want to see me dance, simply just invite me to a wedding and make sure the dance floor is pumping at midnight, and I'll bust out some moves that you might have seen at the breaking. But if you want some non-dance related assistance, I actually can do that quite well. Don't need Olympic judges to judge me. I'm quite happy with my performance there. You can always get in touch with me, Sean, at sportsgeekhq.com is the way you can do that. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Do you get Sports Geek news? Sean Callanan analyzes the latest sports business articles for you weekly. Sign up at sportsgeekhq.com. Want to help drive more revenue from your digital efforts? Book a time for a call. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.